Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good afternoon. It is 12:05. I am Pamela Furr, in for Matt Murphy, who's in for Brian Wilson later on this afternoon at 3 for the drive. And then Brian Wilson will be back in his own chair on Monday. So there you go. That's the lineup for the next couple of days, if you will. I got to tell you, I got a lot of comments after yesterday's show. And if you weren't able to listen at the end of yesterday, I was fit to be tied. I was redhead mad. Bel K knows what that means. I was redhead angry. I was redhead passionate about the fact that it looks to me as if the Tennessee GOP is imploding on itself. Not thinking things through. Lack of leadership in this last session. I know that the House and the Senate are hoping to end today, this year's General Assembly, this session of the General Assembly. I'm going to need them to go home and think about what they've done. Because from a PR standpoint, it's been a nightmare on both sides, the Senate and the House. And it started, people have forgotten, it started with rainbows and sunshine. It started with Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally, and I predicted he wouldn't be able to survive this session. I predicted he would have to resign or something. And the members of the body, the members of the Senate, did take a vote of confidence for Randy McNally. So they didn't ask him to resign, and they didn't boot him out. So he survived. I have to wonder if that was strategic so that they could get through the session. And I've been wondering if after this session is done, Randy McNally will just quietly retire and won't be back next year. No one has said a thing to me. I haven't heard any rumors. That's just what I've been wondering. And so if that's how it's handled, in my opinion, that shows that Senate leadership thought some things through. And they were able to get through the so-called scandal. I've got the air quotes going. People on Super Talk TV can see me doing that. They were able to get through the scandal and then continue to get the work of the people done in the Senate. Instead of the story every day being about sunshine and roses. No, rainbows and sunshine. An Instagram post, and the lieutenant governor got rid of his Instagram account. And after about a week, nobody was talking about it anymore. Now let's head on over to the House side. The House side has been a bit of a disaster from a PR standpoint. Now, they've gotten some things done. They've gotten a lot of things done. But somehow or another, 3 people were able to hijack the session this year, hijack it, by using one of the worst tragedies that we've seen in Nashville in a while. And that is the Covenant school shooting. They've been able to hijack the narrative, hijack the sessions, waste the people's time, waste the people's money. And I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, but you seem feckless. You seem like you have no backbone, and it's been you allowed them to hijack it. You allowed them to be martyrs. You allowed them to paint the picture that Nashville and Tennessee is nothing but a big old good old boys racist state. Instead of thinking things through, I mean, we're going to have now 2 new special elections because Jones and Pearson right now are just appointed to those seats. They have to be reelected again because they were expelled from the body. So that's going to happen. The dates have been set. So now that the narrative has been hijacked, as the governor calmly tries to bring it back around to, we have to do something to protect our kids in schools. So you have an executive order, and then you have what some are calling a proposal for red flag laws. You have the SRO bill that passed. You got some things done, other things that were done, like getting rid of these oversight boards in communities. Changing that. You've gotten some things done. And then, bam, yesterday, the news broke by Phil Williams. And I have to be honest with you, I texted him. He and I do not agree on a lot of things. He's a damn good reporter. There are those that accuse him of going after the GOP and Republicans and the conservatives. I've known him for years. I've known his work for years. He goes after people equally. If there is something there, if there's an investigation that needs to be had, he goes after it. On both sides of the aisle. Again, ideologically, I don't think we agree on things. But he's a good reporter. So I texted him yesterday. Well done, sir. Because had he not done this story about this moron in East Tennessee who was a representative, we would have never known that he or a member of the GOP House had been found guilty of ethics violations when it comes to discrimination and harassment in the workplace. We would have never known. And as I understand the story, it was a family member that reached out to Phil Williams about the complaint that an intern made to her supervisor at her university that handles interns. The university then contacted the House Ethics Committee about this lawmaker who was harassing young interns. I'm going to play for you this afternoon an interview that Cameron Sexton did with Matt Murphy yesterday afternoon. It was short because he was still doing the business of the people yesterday. They were trying to pass a bunch of stuff and get a lot of things voted on yesterday because they're trying to get out of Dodge. They're trying to end this session and go home. So I'm going to play for you some of the things that he said. I'm going to recap the whole story, and I'm going to play for you some of the things that he said, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not buying it. I'm still fired up over this story. There's an ethics committee that put a letter in a lawmaker's file that said he was guilty of discrimination and harassment. We find out that this lawmaker was able to keep his job and keep his apartment at Capitol Towers while the young lady who was harassed, and I'm not going to say allegedly, because this lawmaker admitted to having adult conversations with her. Former lawmaker, Scotty Campbell. I'm not going to say alleged because the ethics committee, the subcommittee on harassment and discrimination, found him to be guilty of violating the policies that are in place in the House of Representatives for the state of Tennessee. So I'm not going to say, at that point, it's not alleged anymore. So they, instead of removing him from the situation. They removed her. I have a problem with that, everybody. I have a problem with in 2023, seemingly, I want to make sure that word is there, seemingly, there is a workplace violation and the one who is guilty of perpetrating the action, the offender is protected and not the offended. And I'm going to play this interview, I promise. I hear from Cameron Sexton words of protecting the victim. Yet the victim's furniture got shipped back to East Tennessee. Yet the victim had to move out of her apartment and into a downtown hotel room. Now, I will say, maybe she was asked, what would you like to do? Maybe her answer was, I want to be away from him. And this is the order or the way that they chose to do it. But again, I say, why should she have to change her lifestyle and he not change a dang thing? And I know Cameron Sexton talks about procedures that Beth Harwell put into place when she was speaker after the Jeremy Durham debacle. But as I recall, we received details. The public had details of what actually happened in this Jeremy Durham debacle. The House Speaker had it too. The information was out there. Now, is that the policy that they changed? I've got a copy of the policy. And in that copy of the policy that I see at the end of it, it says that the speaker can use his discretion. I'm going to read that verbatim, though. I don't want to put words there if it does not apply. So all of this is coming up this afternoon. We also do want to talk about Elon Musk and the backlash he's getting for removing blue checks. Even in this building, there are people going, oh my God, my blue check is gone. Elon Musk removed my blue check. A lot of people are really upset about that. I got to tell you, I never had a blue check with Twitter until I paid for it. And I paid for that mostly to get the editing features on Twitter, right? But I worked hard to get my blue check on Facebook. So I've got a blue check on Facebook, and I think Instagram too. And I, for whatever reason, could never get one on Twitter. And it really ticked me off. Now I have one, but I pay for it. There are people upset that they're now going to have to pay for it. And they're also upset that Elon Musk has decided that he's going to pay for some. I'll tell you who they are too. It's that, and we've got the IRS whistleblower. We've got Biden who plans to announce re-election next week. And then, of course, we've got, what is it Matt calls this? This is First Amendment Free-for-All Friday. Is that right? Did I get it right? First Amendment Free-for-All Friday. No, that's not right?
I can't remember. It's been, 6 years since we did that?
It's been a while since he's been on his own show. I think that's what it is. So we'll do that too. So if you have comments, if you have knowledge of maybe some of the shenanigans at the State House, you're more than welcome to call. I mean, don't be slanderous. I've had some female, hit the mic. Had some female staffers call me in the last 24 hours, telling me the things that they've endured. So now you have the Tennessee GOP looking like racist and misogynist. This is not who we are. Is it? 12:20. I'm Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, it's freestyle. Wait a minute. It's First Amendment Freestyle Friday, not Free for All Friday. On the Matt Murphy Show, I am Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy. Glad to have you on board. It is 12:23. I am Pamela Furr, livid, and I can't let it go. I have to be honest with you. Now, I'm getting some text messages. And by the way, the phone lines are open. 615-737-9986 is the phone number. You can also super text us as well if you would like to get in on this. And again, it's freestyle, First Amendment, free for all. Let's do it Friday. I don't know. That's my new name for it. I can't let it go if I see wrongdoing, whether it's on the Republican side or it's on the Democrat side. I don't disagree with you. This makes us look really, really bad. But it is not my job to do a PR job to make them look better. Right? That's not my job. My job is to inform you of what is happening and you make your own decisions. And unfortunately, right now, the PR job that is needed by the Tennessee GOP is tremendous. The PR job that's needed with the Tennessee GOP is above my pay grade. That is not something that I can do, nor am I supposed to do. But I can tell you, for me, sitting back and just not commenting on this would be wrong. We commented all the time about Mayor Megan Barry. Remember her? And her little scandals? And it broke my heart to do so because I was really encouraged that Nashville was able to hire its first female mayor. I mean, obviously she was not qualified. She put us in some dire situations financially, and then the reputation, of course, by everything that she did was not good. You know, spending money on bodyguards on trips that really weren't necessary, that sort of thing, taxpayer dollars. So if I'm going to talk about that, I have to talk about this, do I not? And what's unfortunate is that there are rumors of a lot more scandalous things happening in the Tennessee House of Representatives. Things that aren't confirmed. I won't talk about them until somebody can confirm them. This has been a real mess. All of it. Meanwhile, you have a manifesto that is yet to be released. The truth of what really happened on that fateful day when 6 innocent people were shot to death by a deranged transgender. You have lawmakers who are scrambling, trying to figure out how to pass a red flag law without passing a red flag law. Right? 615-737-9986. Let's go to Gary in the borough. Hey, Gary.
Hey, Pamela. Just wanted to, I don't understand these guys. They get a little power, they get elected 1 or 2 or 3 times, get a speakership or whatever, and they don't know, keep their hands to themselves they stay on subject of keeping, not say what they shouldn't say. But I do want to say this. WTN gives you the keys 3 to 4 hours a day to fill in for people. And I don't know you. I've met you, though. When is WTN going to take a lady, you in particular, who can sit here and tell me, the other day you were talking about Tennessee Annotated Code or something like that in 2014, and give you a full-time gig if you want it on that radio station?
Well,
if they can sit here and let you behind that microphone for 3 or 4 hours say what you want, but yet, unless you just don't want it, but I hope you do, it's your turn. No problem with Matt or these other guys, but The people like yourself has been around a long time. You know things. I don't want to break in another person. Nothing wrong with these guys. Everybody knew who Brian Wilson was. Matt didn't know him. They're doing great. I'm ready to see somebody. I don't want to get to know another person on the other side of that microphone. I want to hear your voice, and my wife says the same thing. And I hope they will hear me, what I said just then, and take in consideration a lot of people would like to stick to the same voice we got right now. Thank you, Pamela. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate that compliment. He is not. I am not related to Gary. He says he's met me. I guess. I don't know. I didn't pay him to make that phone call. But
if anybody knows how to, all you have to do is check with the Department of Labor, and it is both legal and virtuous to discriminate against gingers and to not give them work whenever possible.
All right. Now, see, this is when I'm turning Bell into HR. He discriminates against this ginger. Was that Freudian? This ginger quite often. I'm teasing, by the way, if HR is listening. He does not. That you know. All right. So, well, thank you. I mean, that was really nice of you. I wasn't expecting that phone call. That was nice. Thank you. Somebody just texted, though, just because you're a female doesn't make you the right person for the job. I'm not sure anybody said that. Did anybody say that? Did you say that, Belle? I didn't say that.
Say what?
That just because I'm a female makes me right for the job. I didn't say that.
No.
Gary didn't either.
It's not the female thing.
It's the ginger.
The ginger thing makes you wrong for the job. That's what it is.
That is so mean.
I don't make the rules. I just write them down.
Well, look, I mean, I do get passionate, and redheads are known for being passionate. I was fired up yesterday, and I'm fired up today. And look, here's the other thing that bothers me a lot, and then we're going to play the interview. Since it is Matt Murphy's show, we're going to do the interview with Cameron Sexton yesterday, with him trying to explain himself to Matt Murphy late yesterday afternoon. So we're going to do that on the Matt Murphy show. So stick around right after this break. But I will tell you what bothers me also is that Cameron Sexton and his office were very upset with me yesterday. They weren't very happy with me yesterday. But instead of calling me, because trust me, they've all got my phone number. I've known these folks for a very long time. Do you think they called me to say, hey, what are you saying? Or, hey, Pamela, let me explain. I think you're a little upset and my hands are tied. No, I didn't get any of those calls. No one said anything like that to me. But they called everybody else on the air and off. That seems a little weenie to me, a little wimpy. I don't, no matter what Bell says, I don't bite. It is 12:31. I am Pamela Furr, in for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 12:36. I am Pamela Furr. Thank you for being with us today. 615-737-9986. It is free for all. No, it is First Amendment Freestyle Friday on the Matt Murphy Show, and I'm glad that you're here so you can call any topic that you want to talk about. And if you even want to criticize me, I am getting some criticism on the super text line. You're more than welcome to do that. I'm not going to, again, I am not going to bite, I promise. Meanwhile, this is the story, and I do want to let you listen to Cameron Sexton and what he had to say about the allegations that he did nothing to punish this House member who was found guilty of ethics violations. It's a member of the GOP leadership, by the way. Leadership, not just a House member, but a member of leadership, recently found guilty of sexually harassing at least one legislative intern, and by his own admission, maybe even two, by an ethics subcommittee acting in secret. About 6 hours after Phil Williams and News Channel 5 Investigates reported the story, and after he was confronted by Phil Williams, Representative Scotty Campbell gave up his seat in the Tennessee General Assembly. He served as the vice chair of the House Republican caucus, and he's one of those who voted to expel the 3 Democrats who engaged in gun violence. Engaged in gun violence protests on the House floor, but had suffered no previous consequences as a result of his actions. Despite accusations of sometimes extremely vulgar comments and other inappropriate advances, Republicans did not remove the 39-year-old East Tennessee lawmaker from his leadership position, nor from his committee assignments. But taxpayers are paying for his actions. This is News Channel 5 saying this. Potentially thousands of dollars have been spent to protect one victim. That's what they're saying, to protect her, by relocating her from the downtown apartment building where she and Campbell both had apartments, shipping her furniture back home in another part of the state, and placing her in a downtown hotel for the remainder of her internship. Why didn't they just remove him? Dude, you can't stay here anymore. Find a place to go. Now, I'm told in the past, this is what I have been told, he's been known to sleep in his office. I've been told in the past he's been known to sleep in his office, and, well, I probably should keep the rest to myself. He's been known to sleep in his office. So why couldn't he just go back to doing that? Legislative officials are refusing to say how much they've paid out. They say that information is confidential to protect the victim. Confronted with the allegations Thursday, Campbell referenced a second intern who was also involved in the investigation. News Channel 5 did not know that until then. Based on the completed staff investigation, the Ethics Subcommittee finds that Representative Campbell violated the policy against workplace discrimination and harassment. Speaker Sexton was sent that memo. He may not have known the details, but if you're guilty of discrimination or harassment in the workplace, aren't you at least put on, in normal circumstances at any company, most of the time, you're either put on probation, suspended, or fired. Am I right? I think I'm right about that. That didn't happen to this guy. And the House Speaker, it sounds like to me he didn't even inquire about it. Now, I'm going to play the interviews. This way, I'm not going to put words in his mouth. I'm going to let you hear from him. If you didn't hear the interview yesterday afternoon around 5:35, I'm going to let you hear some of it now from Cameron Sexton. Is my computer up there, Belle? This is Cameron Sexton talking to Matt Murphy yesterday.
Yeah, let me talk about how the process works. The process changed after Jeremy Durham in 2016. At that point in time, Lieutenant Governor Ron Ramsey and Beth Harwell changed the process to what is being used today. During that process, myself or the speaker, whoever that would be today, it would be me, we received no details of the actions of the ongoings or what happened. And that was done to protect the victim that is potentially filing the complaint or to someone else who filed the complaint. The committee is a bipartisan committee. It's made up of 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats, the subcommittee. It's the Workplace Harassment and Discrimination Subcommittee. If someone files a complaint, it goes straight to OLA, which is Office of Legislative Administration. They start conducting a thorough investigation and a review. Then they take it to this subcommittee of workplace harassment and discrimination. It's bipartisan, as I said, 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats. They look into it. They can talk to witnesses. They can continue the investigation. They continue to look at it, and then they decide what corrective actions to take. It's their decision. They make votes, and then when they decide what action they want to take, then they send me a letter and saying that they have made a decision, and then that's where the letter that got released goes into the file at that point. And then the letter is in there, which is open for freedom of information, but the details of the happenings and so forth are not part of that documentation.
Then how is it possible? I'm confused. How is it possible for you as speaker to make a determination as to whether or not to take some sort of punitive or corrective action?
That's not my decision, Matt.
That's not my decision, Matt. All right. I have a copy of the policy. I'm pretty dang sure it is this policy that is before this session of this House of Representatives. And I'm not sure he's right about that. I'm going to let you listen to more to Cameron Sexton. I have this policy in front of me and I'm reading it. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm not stupid either. I'm going to bring that to you in just a minute. I want you to continue to hear from Cameron Sexton.
Whose decision is it?
It's the subcommittee's decision.
So your statement is the subcommittee decided to do nothing?
No, the subcommittee did decide to do things, but that was their decision. They're the ones who take that level of action. That is not the speaker's role to determine the corrective action.
What did the subcommittee decide to do punitively to Representative Campbell?
Unfortunately, as I said, that is information that can't be released. That's what our Doug Himes, the ethics attorney, has said, that information cannot be released.
So you have had no further information about this incident other than the letter dated March 29th to your office?
I knew no details about the actions. Obviously, I knew that there was a complaint filed, somewhat the nature of it, which would be workplace harassment and discrimination. But as far as knowing the details that were reported today in the media, that would be accurate.
All right. So it says here in the articles or policy information that I have, it says if the investigation reveals that the complaint is valid, prompt attention and disciplinary action designed to immediately stop the harassment and to prevent its recurrence shall be taken. Point A deals with a legislative employee. The form of disciplinary action for a legislative employee shall be considered and decided upon by the appropriate authority based on the seriousness of the offense. Part B says the form of disciplinary action for a member, so that would be a member of the House of Representatives in the state of Tennessee, shall be determined in accordance with Article 2, Section 12 of the Constitution of Tennessee. Well, what does Article 2, Section 12 say? According to the information that I have, and I'm just making this reader friendly, it says each house may determine the rules of its proceedings, punish its members for disorderly behavior. I would say harassment is disorderly behavior, and with the concurrence of 2/3, expel a member. So he says it wasn't his decision. I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that. Do you need to know the details if you're told it is guilty? Guilty of discrimination and harassment, but guilty of our policy. Do you need to know the details to go, okay, well then it's time for you to resign? You can go to that member and say you're going to have to resign. If you do not resign, then we are going to compel this committee to release the information, and then we're going to have to bring it before the so-called court, which would be the House of Representatives, to see if someone will move an article to expel this member from the House, and then all the details would be released. That's the way I think it would work. I'm not sure how I'm wrong. So this just seems very sketchy to me, number one. Number two, if you didn't dive any deeper to see what the offense was, then this is the Speaker of the House of Representatives doing this, la, 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 with his fingers in his ear. La, 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 I don't want to hear anymore. No, 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 no. La, 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 about one of his own members, who's, by the way, in leadership of the House Republican Caucus.
They're the writers of their own press releases.
La, 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 la. And at worst, he knew it and covered it up. That's at worst. Now, I don't know if he did that. I don't know. But he seems very out of touch, doesn't he, when he says, it's not my job. They're doing this to protect the victim, when, boy, it seems like they're doing it to protect the offender. The offender. 12:50. I've got Sean on the line. I tell you what, Sean, if you can hold on through the break, I'll take your call first. And anybody else that wants to call, get on the line, if you will. 615-737-9986. I'm Pamela Furr for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. right, it is 12:56. I am Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy. It is First Amendment Freestyle Friday. 615-737-9986 is the phone number. Sean in Mount Juliet. Thank you, Sean, for holding on as long as you have.
Hey, Pamela, great to hear you on the radio again.
Thank you.
Hey, I just listening to you, and if they truly are protecting the victim, okay. However, as you've alluded to, this doesn't pass the smell test. And where we differ from the other side of the aisle, we hold our own people accountable. And if Cameron Sexton can't release what the punishment was, then we need to change the rules. These people were elected by us. They answer to us.
100%. They answered at us. We need to know how much money was spent on this fiasco and, those kinds of details. And I agree with you. And Sexton even admitted in the interview with Matt Murphy yesterday that they need to go back and relook at this policy and do some tweaking. He kept referring to it as the policy that Beth Harwell put into place. But I'm sorry. There's something not right here. It just, in my gut, something tells me something's very wrong.
And I agree with you on the money aspect, but again, and not to be wasteful with our money. However, in the grand scheme of things, the money is the lesser of the problems. This woman was mistreated.
Yes.
And there needs to be accountability.
Yeah. I agree with you. And, it's the things that, thank you, Sean, and the things that this lawmaker said to her just turned my stomach. Now, he's single, yes, but he's, a lot older than her. Not that age means anything, but my point is he should know better. If I were House Speaker Cameron Sexton, if he's able to keep his speakership in the next session, I would spend this time making sure that your policies are explained in depth to lawmakers before next session. Make sure they go through the appropriate training. Trust me, we in corporate America have to go through appropriate training when it comes to harassment in the workplace, et cetera, et cetera. I would think lawmakers would have to go through the same training. After all, at some point, they're the ones that created all of this, the laws and the, et cetera, policies. They have their own policy. And remind them that session is for getting things done for the people of Tennessee, not party because you're away from home for a couple of months. It's not party central. News is next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. We're learning more about why prosecutors dropped the involuntary manslaughter charges against actor Alec Baldwin for the fatal shooting on the movie set Rust. A source familiar with the matter tells ABC News the decision was made in part because investigators found the gun that fired and killed cinematographer Helena Hutchins to be mechanically improper. A review of that gun finding there were worn joints and the trigger control was not functioning properly. New findings that signaled to New Mexico prosecutors that the gun could fire without pressure on the trigger. ABC's Matt Gutman has more.
Special prosecutors Katie Morrissey and Jason Lewis, who were assigned to the case last month, dismissed the involuntary manslaughter charges without prejudice, but stated new facts were revealed that demand further investigation and forensic analysis in the case. This decision does not absolve Mr. Baldwin of criminal culpability, and charges may be refiled.
Set armorer Hannah Gutierrez Reed is still facing manslaughter charges. Her attorneys stated they are confident the investigation will exonerate her when it's over. The Supreme Court poised to weigh in on the abortion pill battle. A temporary stay on lower court decisions expires at midnight. ABC's Rachel Scott says the justice's decision could impact access to the medication nationwide, even in states where abortion is legal.
They took more time blowing past their own self-imposed deadline to consider a ruling from a lower court that would propose new significant restrictions and limitations on the abortion pill that's used in more than half of abortions in the United States. Now, this would limit the use of the pill to 7 weeks of pregnancy instead of 10. It would require 3 in-person doctor visits and no longer allow the pill to be available by mail.
5 NFL players have been suspended after the NFL says they found violations of the league's gambling policy. 3 are suspended indefinitely, at least until the end of the 2023 season. You're listening to ABC News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hello, hello. I am Pamela Furr, in for Matt Murphy. Matt Murphy in for Brian Wilson later on today at 3. He may have a special guest with a special announcement, but it's not 100% confirmed. I think it's like at 95% confirmed. And so once it hits the 100% confirmed mark, I will let you know exactly what that's about for you so you can listen later on this afternoon. Brian Wilson will be back on Monday. Glad that you're here. It is a First Amendment Freestyle Friday on the Matt Murphy Show. So if you'd like to call in anything you want to talk about, anything goes, it's 615-737-9986. Again, the number 737-9986. You can super text as well. We're live on on Super Talk TV. This headline, now I am going to talk about Hunter Biden next. This is what we're going to deal with today because there are some charges that are being considered against him. And it's just the beginning of the battle. So we're going to talk about that. But this, I shouldn't laugh, and hopefully nobody was killed. But do you know that Russia, have you seen the latest headline on Russia? It's bombed its own city. Oops. And has left a 60-foot crater. Oh. I don't know why that just brings me such great pleasure that Russia goofed.
What was that?
They goofed. I can imagine.
I don't know. In Russia, that could be policy.
Well, I mean, I have to, they're sitting there, their military playing in a little control room somewhere, and they're going, all right, what's next? And now they take a wrong turn at Albuquerque, as Bugs Bunny used to say. And they release the Kraken, they release the bomb, and somebody goes, hey, did you check those coordinates yet? And boom, and you realize, oh, that's our land. Oops. That's our city. And again, I hope no one was killed, but holy smokes, that's a big mistake. That's a big problem. So that's the headline coming from CNN in Russia. All right. Federal prosecutors are weighing four charges, just four, against Hunter Biden. 3 are related to tax crimes and a felony charge related to a gun purchase. I think we've heard about this gun purchase, for a year or so. And boy, I mean, they got Al Capone on tax evasion and tax charges, didn't they? So maybe this is how they're going to bring down the Biden family. I don't know. But the possible charges are 2 misdemeanor counts for failure to file taxes. Am I right about this? It's not that you don't pay your taxes. It's you have to file your taxes regardless. And the payment you could figure out later. But you can't just not file taxes. He also, it could be facing a single felony count of tax evasion related to a business expense for 1 year of taxes and a gun charge, which is also a potential felony. This is NBC reporting this at this moment. Additionally, 2 senior law enforcement sources are telling the network that there is growing frustration inside the FBI because the bulk of the investigative work was finished last year.
When Hunter was asked for a comment, he said,
You want to get high?
So, anyway, the IRS, you got to stop doing this to me. The IRS finished its tax investigation more than a year ago. So the bulk of the work was finished on the FBI side. The bulk of the work was finished on the IRS side. So what are you waiting on, for crying out loud? The decision on what charges to file against Joe Biden's son and when rests in the hands of U.S. Attorney David Weiss. Now, he was appointed by Donald Trump and retained by the Biden administration. So that's something to keep in mind, but there's no indication of when those charges may come. Hunter, of course, has denied all wrongdoing. It began in 2018, this entire probe during the Trump presidency. The former president used Biden as a rallying cry for his base. He didn't have, let me say this. He didn't have to use this story as a rallying cry. Other organizations had the information, tried to release the information, and they were shut down by media outlets and by social media outlets. The rallying cry is, why isn't this information being allowed to be shared? That was the rallying cry. Earlier this week, a man serving as a supervising agent on a, quote, high-profile criminal tax probe, what else would that be? came forward seeking whistleblower protections while claiming politics are improperly infecting decisions in a certain investigation. That covert ask was deemed to be about the Hunter Biden case. As you've been hearing all of the hosts talk about here on WTN, a lawyer representing the unidentified whistleblower wrote senators as well as inspectors general for the Justice Department and the Treasury Department on Wednesday. The protected disclosures contradict sworn testimony to Congress by a senior political appointee and involve failure to mitigate clear conflicts of interest in the ultimate disposition of the case. This is according to attorney Mark Lytle of Nixon Peabody, that particular law firm. Now, this, to me, is very interesting information. It's also interesting that just as this information comes out, President Biden now has decided, I'm going to run for president again, and is supposed to make the announcement on Tuesday. I have no doubt, because he's been holding off and holding off and holding off, I have no doubt this is strategic to take your attention away from this story. Don't you? And I would venture to say in the next couple of days, something else is going to come out. Something else is going to happen to distract you from this story. Don't you? They're really good at these distractions. They're really good at holding on to scandals, information, I don't know, to release just in time to distract from bad information about the Bidens. They're good at it. Let's just be honest. They're good at it. So he's supposed to announce on Tuesday that he's running for re-election. How is this man? I mean, he's worse off than he was when he ran the first time. The dementia has set in, and I'm not making fun and laughing. The dementia has set in. He's 80 years old. He needs to go away. He needs to just back away and spend the rest of his life with his family and visiting Hunter in prison. It is,
you ain't black.
It is time for Dean on the line here, 615-737-9986. Dean in Columbia, welcome to the Matt Murphy Show.
Hey, Pamela, good to hear your voice again. Filing is not required under the Internal Revenue Service Code. It is completely voluntary. However, if you do not file, the Secretary of Treasury is supposed to file for you. Having been a tax processor for over 40 years,
so I got that wrong
with the code.
All right, I got it wrong. Well,
I got another comment on your disclosures. I think the Democrats don't want Biden to run, and they're the ones releasing this kind of information.
Do you? So you mean even the whistleblower?
I'm a little bit of a Machiavellian, yes. I do believe that may be what's happening.
Interesting. I never thought of it from that aspect, that perhaps the dude is a Democrat, or at least, the Democrats are behind this because they don't want him to run. I'm going to have to explore that a little more, Dean.
The last time he was going to announce another one of those kind of events also happened. If you go back, I think it was just before State of the Union.
All right, I'll check it out. Thank you, and thank you for the correction.
Okay, you bet.
All right, have a good day, Dean. I appreciate it. All right,
you want to get high?
615-737-9986. Let's go to Scott in Columbia. Hey, Scott, how you doing? Scott going once.
Scott?
Yes. Are you Scott?
Biden and Hunter. Yes, I can't wait for the debates if Biden is going to run for re-election. I think they're going to be comical. And secondly, about Hunter Biden, I don't think anything's going to happen until, and I hope nothing does, until after Biden is out of office. Because if something happens, Biden will pardon him, don't you think?
Well, yeah, that's probably very, very true.
Mm-hmm. Have a great day.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for your phone call. I appreciate that. You know, I would think that Biden running for re-election and all of that, I would think that once a Republican nominee is voted on and decided on, I would think that the powers that be that are pulling the strings for Joe Biden would probably say we're not participating in debates this time.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
How would they be able to handle if he goes off on a dementia-riddled tirade, or a question is asked and he looks at him like,
That's a serious question, right?
Exactly.
You want to see my temper? Keep going.
So, I mean, think about that. I think he would have if I'm the predicting kind, I predict that if indeed he makes this announcement on Tuesday, the election season is in full bloom. Primaries occur. Of course, he does have a primary contender now, doesn't he? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Is it the junior or third? What is he? He is
Pretty
third.
sure it's junior.
Junior. He's a junior. So, which, by the way, have you listened to him speak? He sounds terrible.
Well, and they're coming out of the woodwork attacking him already.
Yeah. Big time.
To see a Kennedy get slammed like that, you would almost think that could never happen in this country, but they are going after him.
Well, see, and here's the thing, too. The Kennedy age really is, after Ted Kennedy died, that loyalty really to the family has been lost, don't you think? I mean, because you're talking about generations now who are voters who don't really have a clue about the mystique of the Kennedy family anymore, because they've been so far removed from politics.
Yeah, that's true.
For quite a while.
Plus, once Ted died, there was so much more extra booze available in D.C. that everybody's just stayed drunk since then.
It is 1:18. I am Pamela Furr on the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 121. Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy, who will be in at 3 for Brian Wilson, who will be back on Monday. I've got Congressman John Rose coming up at 2 o'clock this afternoon. I'm not sure, in the time that he has been in office, I'm not sure I've ever interviewed him. I've been at events for him. I've sung the national anthem at some events that he's been a part of. But I don't know that I've ever actually interviewed him. So I'm just going to talk about a range of things. But one of the things that was a little alarming, that's probably not the right word. Disconcerting, surprising that John Rose, along with some other Tennessee lawmakers, have already endorsed Donald Trump for president. And the only reason why that has surprised me is because it feels like it's too soon, knowing that there are others that are going to toss their hat into the race. You have Ron DeSantis. People really honestly believe that he's going to run. And if he is, I think he's getting a lot of stuff done first in Florida, either by executive order or through, their state lawmakers, so he can sign some things into law. Then he'll resign as governor and declare that he's running for president. Well, there are a lot of DeSantis fans out there. I mean, I'm going to ask him. We're going to talk a little bit about that and some other things as well, but that's at 2:05 this afternoon, so be listening for that. Sherman in Lawrenceburg. Hi, Sherman. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Great. What's your comment today on First Amendment Freestyle Friday?
Yeah, I was going to piggyback off of your previous caller on Hunter Biden. I think what's probably going to happen is the Department of Justice will probably wait till the last year of Biden's term.
Yeah.
They'll bring him up on trial because the guy that's looking into it is in Delaware. That's probably where the trial will be. If the jury finds him guilty, Biden will drop out of the race and probably hand it over to Newsom to run. And the last 2 days of his presidency, he'll pardon him.
He just might. He'll have the power to do that if he wants to.
Yeah, and if he's going out of office the last day or the last 2 days, there'll be a lot of uproar over it, but he'll be gone. He
won't care. Yeah, exactly. He'll be gone. Won't care. He won't, he's not going to be doing many speeches around the country. He doesn't have a lot of life left in it. Maybe 10 years, maybe 5 years. Heck, he could live another 20 years, but I don't know that he's going to be doing the special speech circuit. I don't know that his health is there. I don't know that his cognitive abilities are there. Thank you, Sherman, for your phone call. 615-737-9986 is the phone number. It's also available for super texting. Let's go to Dave in Franklin. Hey, Dave, how are you?
Doing great. How are you doing?
Fabulous. Thank you.
Hey, so you brought up Bobby Kennedy Jr., and I just wanted to call up and say that I'm going to be voting for Trump or DeSantis in the general, but I will 100% be using my primary vote to vote for RFK Jr.
Yeah, how come?
I think back to how miserable the GOP was before Trump, just a neocon nightmare. I think that RFK can actually change the Democratic Party the same way Trump changed our party. It's one thing to win an election here or there, but we have a chance to use our primary votes to change the Democratic Party as a whole, like Trump did for our party.
Well, that's a reason to do it. I like primaries, Dave, and for the reasons that you just said. And you can vote for the candidate that you're most aligned to. And I think more people should get involved in the primary process, quite frankly, than a lot of people have.
And the thing to know, I think, is that, I think in Tennessee you have to pick one primary to vote in. I'm good with either DeSantis or Trump. I don't care who's going to be the nominee. I'll vote for either one. They're both good men. But as far as, balancing outcomes, between RFK and Biden, only one of them is a good man. And if we have RFK versus Trump or DeSantis, I want the Republican to win, but I'll take RFK any day over Biden.
All right. Good deal. Thank you very much, Dave. I appreciate your telephone call. At least you're thinking it through, right? You're thinking it through. And that's a good thing. Meanwhile, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is warning of the treachery Democrats have up their sleeves if they are able to keep the White House and Senate and recapture the House in 2024. Now, he has not obviously jumped into the presidential race, but it seems like he is going through the motions. He was hobnobbing in D.C. today. He was at the Heritage Foundation's 50th anniversary celebration today. In that venue, he talked about the national repercussions that Republicans would face if they don't mount a successful challenge to President Joe Biden. He told those at this anniversary celebration, and as soon as I can get the audio, I will bring that to you, but he said they're playing for keeps. He's not wrong. They are. He said if you look at what happens in 2024, the Democrats are able to sweep all the offices, President, Senate, and House. What will they do with that power? Well, you know what they're going to do with that power. They'll pack the Supreme Court, and they'll try to get rid of the Electoral College. Period. Now, when it comes to my vote for president, I personally look at two things. How would you be as a commander-in-chief of our military? And how would you select your next Supreme Court justice? Other than that, to me, the president is a figurehead. Now, I know the president is more than that, but those are the two important things for me. I don't think there's anything more important than those two things when you're choosing a president. The next is money. How do you manage money? What can you do for our economy? Trade, all of those things. But for me, Supreme Court picks, how do you run the military? The rest, and who you pick as cabinet members, because you have to surround yourself with the brightest. You have to surround yourself with people who know more than you do about transportation and about health and human services and the Defense Department. And I can go down the list, Homeland Security. You have to surround yourself with those bright people, which Trump made some colossal mistakes. He made some good choices, and he also made some colossal mistakes. Joe Biden has made nothing but mistakes when it's come to his cabinet. None of them are competent. And that's why we're in the you-know-what that we're in right now.
But
what?
That's competency was not the point. He has a diverse cabinet. That's what matters. That's what's important. Competency is irrelevant.
Diverse in incompetence. Yes, I agree with you. Diversely incompetent. It is 1:30. I am Pamela Furr. This is Friday. It is First Amendment Freestyle Friday on the Matt Murphy Show. 615-737-9986. We'll be back in a moment. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 1:34. I am Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy. It is a Freestyle Friday. So 615-737-9986 is the phone number. 615-737-9986. It looks like the president in his aviator glasses is announcing new actions to, quote, advance environmental justice. By the way, did you know that we have been environmentally racist? Apparently, that's his latest word. And so we'll make fun of that a little later on in the program because that is just probably one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. Meanwhile, on Monday, it looks like President Biden and the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, will welcome the 3 Tennessee Democratic lawmakers, we told you about this the other day, who made headlines after facing expulsion from the State House while lobbying, this is what they say, for gun control, right, or gun reform. So they're going to welcome them to the White House on Monday. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre says the president is looking forward to discussing not just their efforts on gun reform and control, but their experiences of fighting for their democratic values.
It was undemocratic when they were expelled and essentially ousted out of their seats, and it was also an attack on our democracy.
See, now I can't help but laugh. It was an attack on our democracy. Can I tell you something about those 3? Now, Johnson, not as much, but do you know that those 3 continue to vote as we're winding down this session, voting present, not voting. So on issues, in fact, issues that seem to be unanimous in voting, bipartisan voting. I believe one of the bills I saw a few minutes ago, here we go, from, what is his name? It is Jody Barrett. He said the House just passed almost unanimously House Bill 1280, which increases the penalty for elder abuse. There were a few people who didn't think it was a good idea. Guess who those people were? Well, you had only 3 that voted no, and 1 that voted present, not voting. Let me say this again. On a bill that would increase the penalty for elder abuse. Now, I would think that would be a bipartisan issue that everybody can get behind. I don't know who House Member Harris is, but Harris voted no. This is just coming down. Johnson voted no. Pearson voted no. And Jones voted present, not voting. I would have to do my research. I may spend it over the weekend, especially if they adjourn in the House this weekend or today. I'm going to do some research, and I would venture to say that Jones, out of all of them, more so than all of them, voted present, not voting on most of those. Now, can you tell me how on earth you can say that he is representing his people when he's not even voting? You're not even voting. You're just there. You're there taking up space. I want you to hear me. If you are a voter in Davidson County, more specifically, if you are a voter in District 52, which is the district that he represents, he's not representing you at all. He's a placeholder if he's just present, not voting. That's a disgrace. That's a mockery. He's not doing the job that you sent him to do. So as a special election is on the agenda, I want you to remember that. Remember, this is his first time at bat, if you will. And look at what he's done with it. He's raised his profile, but he hasn't raised your profile as the constituents of District 52. He's done very little for you as District 52. Present not voting, that's an insult to you. to you. 615-737-9986. Let's go to Peggy in Nashville. Hello, Peggy.
Oh, Pamela. Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, I am so glad you took my call. As far as I'm concerned, there is a major crisis going on, like, right as we speak. Early on, Biden signed this thing to allow World Health Organization to take over any sovereignty about our medical First Amendment rights in case of a pandemic again, which would include, mandatory vaccines, mandatory lockdowns, all that kind of stuff they did before. He signed this that it overrides and says it overrides any concept or any ability of our own country to make our own rules, that we have to give up our personal rights and do whatever the World Health Organization says.
So you're saying, he signed this when?
He signed it, I believe, March 14th. Anyway, and then it's in an article, something in a section. And now there's some people, and I mean, I hate to mention some of the people's names, but I'm begging you all, please, we are giving up our country's sovereignty, our First Amendment rights.
Yeah, but you're not. Well, hold on. So if he's signing executive orders like that go against the Constitution, it can be ruled unconstitutional. So I mean, I know you're saying that, but remember, we do have a Constitution that is the ultimate rule.
Well, I hope you're right, but it says in the thing that it overrides anything this country says. But here's the deal. If you would get your listeners to please call their senators and representatives and say, please stop this. They say the only way we can stop this is to pull out of the World Health Organization.
So have you...
out, and then Biden put us back in. If people... What?
Go ahead. I was going to say, have you contacted your lawmaker? Who's your lawmaker?
Well, I've got Marsha Blackburn and Bill Hagerty. Oh yes, I've contacted.
But who's your congressman?
Yeah, I'm not sure. All I know is Blackburn, Hagerty, and I'm not sure who the Congress. And I got to find that out.
Yes, you do.
Because the forms I filled out were going to go to Marsha Blackburn, Bill Hagerty, Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris. But I got to find that out.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. All right, cool. Thank you very much for your phone call, Peggy. I have to be honest with you. For me, I am not sure which executive order that you're speaking about. But the truth of the matter is, we as the state of Tennessee are a sovereign state. I am a firm believer in states' rights. So we are a sovereign state, just like Florida is a sovereign state, just like Georgia is a sovereign state, New York is a sovereign. We have our own sovereignty. And Joe Biden can sign all the executive orders he wants to, but it can't go against the Constitution. Now, so obviously, someone would have to sue to get it to the Supreme Court for the Supreme Court to say, this isn't constitutional. You can't do this. And so just rest in that and rest in knowing that we as Tennesseans really do have great representation in D.C. And we're going to talk to one of those coming up at 2 o'clock, and that's Congressman John Rose. Some people love Marsha Blackburn. Some people don't like her, but I think she represents us well in D.C. So does Bill Hagerty, very much so. I really like Bill Hagerty, but I've liked him for a long time. You've got Dr. Mark Green, who's stellar. Love Dr. Mark Green. We've got Scott Desjardins. We've got Tim Burchett over there in Knoxville. We have some good. We just elected Andy Ogles, right? We've got good representation in D.C. for the state of Tennessee. So rest in that. 615-737-9986. I am Pamela Furr. It is the Matt Murphy Show. Glad to have you on board. Now, there's a couple of other stories out there. I find this interesting. This one fascinates me. Now, I am on Twitter, and I've been on Twitter for a while, but I've mostly used Twitter. It's changing for me, but I've mostly used Twitter for news feeds. As a news person, that's where I have found most news organizations go to post their stories, to post breaking news, to post those kinds of things. And for me, those blue checks were actually pretty important. I knew that it was at least semi-legit if it had the blue check, right? So it's coming from a legit news organization. You know, at least it's been judged legit by the powers that be, if you will, at Twitter. And then we find out that Twitter's been doing things that they should not have been doing in keeping information from us. I mean, when they censored the Hunter Biden story like they did, Twitter lost a lot of credibility. Well, there are now those who are really upset because Elon Musk has decided to change the way he does things at Twitter, and those legacy blue checks were going by the wayside. So now you have the Wild Wild West, if you will, and it's difficult. I mean, if somebody wanted to launch a Tom Cruise Twitter account, how are you going to know whether it's really Tom Cruise or not? Because if they launched a Tom Cruise Twitter account, and it can even say the official Tom Cruise Twitter account, how are you going to know for sure without a blue dot or at least something? Can you give me a gold dot? Give me a check, something to let me know that this really is coming from Tom Cruise or whoever, NBC News, ABC News, a government official, and not some bozo sitting in their basement trying to, see you jump by releasing incorrect information. So I don't know that this was a great decision or not. It's going to remain to be seen. There are people who have also said, well, I'm not paying $8 a month. I do, but I'm paying honestly so I can have that edit feature. That edit feature is very important to me. Spelling is not necessarily, I write for pronunciation purposes, not necessarily correct spelling. And so when I tweet things, sometimes it doesn't look quite right. So that's why I buy it. But you've got a lot of people all up in arms. The legacy blue ticks are gone. But check this out. Elon Musk, and I guess he can do what he wants to. It's his company. But Elon Musk is personally waiving the fee for people he likes, like William Shatner. So that's kind of random to me, but William Shatner's getting a waive. And they're allowing him to keep his blue check. The same with LeBron James and Stephen King. The only way to have a coveted blue tick now is to sign up for Twitter Blue.
Bette Midler was throwing a tantrum because she lost hers.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah. It was hilarious.
God is watching us. God is watching us unless you don't have a blue tick, and then he ain't watching you anymore. I can sing, by the way. That was on purposely bad. Musk also clarified in a tweet that it was just Shatner, LeBron, and King who would receive this preferential treatment. This is in reference to how government-funded media badges have been added to the accounts of some Western news outlets, including the BBC. Musk has previously said he is a fan of legendary horror author Stephen King. After the two had a brief spat on Twitter, King had been openly disdainful of Musk, charging users for a verification checkmark in order to make the company more profitable. Yesterday, he noticed that the banner that appeared once you click on the blue tick on his profile, changed. Now it says this is a legacy verified account. Anyway, wonder how we can. I want to get on the good side of Elon Musk. I want a blue tick, man. I want a legacy blue tick. I've got one, but I'm not sure it's doing me any good. It's 149, almost 150. Coming up at 2:05, we've got Congressman John Rose coming up, so stick around for that. I am Pamela Furr, in for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Versus Nissan.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 1:57. I am Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy, who will be in here at 3 o'clock. He may have a special guest later on today with a very special announcement. So be listening for that. By the way, he doesn't know this yet, but I promised I was going to bring in a bottle of bourbon, and I did, because I want him to taste a little bit of the Antique Weller that I think is an incredible bottle of bourbon. So we're going to do that later on today as well. If you, just real quick before we go to the news with Mac Moray, a source has dropped a bombshell. Yellowstone, this will be the last season if you love that show. The Dutton family with Kevin Costner is coming to an end. And apparently it's because Taylor Sheridan, who I think is brilliant, apparently has developed some sort of, they're calling it a God complex. And so that and Kevin Costner butting heads together has caused problems. And so therefore, that's why Yellowstone may be coming to an end. But then there's also another rumor.
Well, doesn't the show have like 400 spinoffs?
Yes, and the rumor is that Matthew McConaughey is going to be in the next spinoff. And by the way, there's what?
That's 1623?
Well, okay, so there's 1883, right? I think I've got that right. Or 1882, and that was with Tim McGraw and Faith Hill. And I think that was just going to be one. All-inclusive, they weren't going to do any more of that one. But the next one was 1923. With Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren. Y'all, that was so good. It's actually better than Yellowstone, although I love Yellowstone and Rip, and I love Kevin Costner. And 1923 is just better written. It's a better Dutton story. So, I mean, this is, I guess, a logical way to go to bring this one to an end so you can do your spinoffs. And Matthew McConaughey as some sort of Dutton is not a bad idea. All right, Congressman John Rose coming up at 2:05 after the news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
DirecTV to guarantee your price for 2 years.
It's 2 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Right now, 74 degrees, little cloudy day. Expecting some rain here later on. We got a weather forecast coming up in about 3 minutes. Starting in the nation's capital, where the Supreme Court is expected to announce a decision by midnight on whether it'll wade into the abortion pill battle. The decision could have a major impact on access to medical abortions nationwide, even in states where abortion is legal. Here's Devin Dwyer.
The administration told me this morning they are very concerned about the precedent this sets for the entire drug approval system in this country. Never before this case has a court in this country overruled or questioned, second-guessed FDA's approval of a drug. Never before has a judge actually said the science that the agency relied on in approving something for market, governing how it's used, was flawed. So the administration is very concerned about what this could mean for all sorts of cases and drugs, opening the floodgates, if you will, for any sort of questioning of the agency's science and their process.
Over to a crime story in Colorado. A search for answers is underway after a 20-year-old woman was hit and killed by a rock while driving. Alex Stone.
Friends of Alexa Bartell say she was about the sweetest person you could ever meet.
It just doesn't feel real.
On Wednesday night, Bartell was driving down a road in Jefferson County, Colorado, when investigators say somebody, either in another car or on the side of the road, threw a rock through her windshield, killing her. Jackie Kelly with the Sheriff's Department.
And now we know that that is as a result of the car or the rock that was thrown through her windshield.
Investigators have no suspects, but they believe the same person threw rocks at other vehicles also on Wednesday night.
And in some sports news, the NFL is suspending 5 players for violating gambling policy violations.
Quintus Cephas and C.J. Moore of the Detroit Lions and Shaka Toney of the Washington Commanders suspended for at least the 2023 season for gambling on NFL games. ESPN NFL insider Dan Graziano lays out the rules.
They found that they bet on NFL games, strictly prohibited under the NFL's gambling policy for everyone in the entire league, players, anybody who works in the league, etc.
In addition, 2 players from the Lions have been suspended for the team's first 6 regular season games.
And that was Dave Packer reporting. The NFL says the betting did not compromise the outcome of any games. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 2:06. I am Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy, who will be in for Brian Wilson later on this afternoon on The Drive at 3 o'clock. And then Brian Wilson will be back in the chair and on the air on Monday. So just mark your calendars for that. It is with my pleasure. I'd like to announce that Congressman John Rose is on the line with us today. And John, I have to tell you, I believe this is the first time you and I have ever spoken in an interview capacity. So I'm glad to have you on the air today.
Great to be with you today, Pamela, and thanks for having me on. And I think you're right about that, at least as far as I can remember. But I did sleep last night, so I may have forgotten something. So.
Right. Now, are you back in the district, or are you still in D.C. right now?
I am back home in Cookeville, Tennessee,
Nice.
sitting at my house doing work this afternoon.
Visiting
so,
with
good to be here
visiting with the babies.
That's right. That's right. I'm blessed. I've got two great little boys, and my wife does a good job of looking after them when I'm not here.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on a couple of days ago, and it just didn't work out, but the main reason why I wanted to have you on was because of your recent endorsement of Donald Trump for president of the United States. Not that I don't think it's a great endorsement, but my question is, do you think it's wise to go ahead and endorse so soon when we don't know who all the players are?
Well, I've been in business for most of my life in the private sector, and maybe I shouldn't brag about this, but a few times I've lost an employee that's been a great employee. They moved on and had better opportunities, and then later get a chance to rehire them. And what I can tell you is the best hires I make are when I know the person and they've performed and they've gotten the job done, and you don't have to think about that a lot. And so this, I think, is a special circumstance. It's not often that we have the chance in circumstances like these to rehire the guy who has already done the job and had a just tremendous track record of accomplishment and performance. We achieved the best economy in my lifetime, and I would argue perhaps in the history of the country under the leadership of President Trump. Why would we not want to have him back for another 4 years? And so in my mind, I just wanted to make it clear to the people that I represent and the people across Tennessee that I think President Trump did a great job, and the contrast between him and the 46th president is stark and startling. And so I think it was the right time to get in front of this and say, let's rehire the guy. And, I'm a kind of a Star Wars fan. I suspect you are too, and a lot of the listeners. And if you can hire the Grand Master Jedi, why would you look at any of the Padawans?
All right, I don't want to confess this. Now, I know what you mean, but I don't want to confess this, Congressman Rose. I've never seen the first Star Wars movie. I was a Star Trek girl.
Well, I'm a Star Trek fan too, but you need to go and fill in that gap in your knowledge and background.
And know more about the Jedi. All right, I get it. Now, let me ask you, so the President Trump was in town, I believe it was last weekend, for this RNC retreat, and that's where you and some other members of our Tennessee delegation had an opportunity to see him. Did he say anything to you during that time about the future, about what he plans to do once he's reelected to get us back on track? Did he say anything to you about how he might be leading, of who would be on his VP ticket? And did he say anything to you about any of the other people that have put their name in the hat?
He talked extensively about some of the other candidates, and he talked extensively about what he would do. And I would say didn't give a full picture of that, but certainly picking up the work that he had been working on, and he learned, I think, through the School of Hard Knocks of being in office, some of the things that didn't work and some of the things that did, and we talked about that extensively. We were able to have a long dinner with him, I and some of the others who ended up making decisions last week and announcing those to endorse him. And so he did talk a lot about that and some of the challenges that this country faces, both in terms of how we run government here, but also in particular about the challenges we face around the world. So, yes, he got into a lot of those things. He didn't talk a lot about who might be in his administration or who he might tap for important positions like vice president. But certainly, I think he is keenly observant about what's happening, not only in presidential politics, but with respect to, other races around the country. And so, he has a really extensive and I would say brilliant command of the political landscape in this country. And that's on display. And what a genuine guy. And I know that's hard for some people to imagine, but, I think if you could look past your ideological perspective, if you disagree with the president, he's a person it's just a pleasure to spend time with.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that concerns me, though, Congressman Rose, for anybody who gets the next office there in the White House, it seems to me, and you would know more than I would, of course, but it seems to me that in the next 4 years, the United States could be drug into a war, to some sort of war, whether it's World War III or it's just something with China and Taiwan. And did you guys talk about that at all? And have you had conversations with anybody else? What's your opinion about that? Because I think as we're looking towards the future, there's concerns that our military isn't ready, our military isn't strong enough, our economy right now is not strong enough to be able to handle getting involved in any kind of war, but we might, again, be drug into one whether we like it or not.
Well, I think your fears are well placed, and yes, we talked about this, and I think we see, in very vivid display, the contrast between President Trump and President Biden in terms of how to deal with our foreign adversaries. Mm-hmm. And so, you deal from a position of strength and clarity about what your intentions are and what you will do. And I think President Trump really did a clinic on that as president. And I think President Biden has, by contrast, displayed all the things that you don't do.
Right. And I would even say,
to maintain the strength of the country.
Well, and I would even say he's reversed what President Trump was able to accomplish. Completely reversed it. Yeah.
And I think we could take the Russian invasion of Ukraine as just maybe the best example of the contrast. So, President Trump dealt very forcefully with President Putin, and you didn't see the adventuresomeness that you've seen during both the Obama administration and the Biden administration. Mm-hmm. And so let's not forget that Putin invaded Ukraine during the Obama administration. He took the Crimea, and absolutely nothing was done about it. Then we have a long period of quiet through the Trump administration, and then President Biden comes into office. I don't think Putin immediately was sure about how Biden might handle things, but then Biden put this on display with the disastrous, bungled retreat that he ordered from Afghanistan. And I think at that moment, not only President Putin, but President Xi and the leaders in North Korea, Iran, and other places around the world knew then that we had a feckless, weak, ineffective leader in President Biden who, was opening the door to adventures, to aggression around the world. And,
sure.
and that's exactly what we've seen happen. Yeah. And so, this is, to use an old adage from the country, the stitch in time saves 9. And I think you're right that we should be fearful about what the next 4 years pose for us. And I think it matters as much as it ever has in the history of this country who we have leading us. And again, I would tell you that's the reason why I have stepped forward early to help lead the Trump campaign here in Tennessee with several of my colleagues in the Congress, and very proud to do that. And I'm convinced that President Trump offers the best hope for our country over the next 4 years. And I think we should roll up our sleeves and do everything we can to reelect President Trump and bring that kind of forceful leadership back to our country.
Back to our country. Meanwhile, here in Tennessee, on the local level, the state level, you have some decisions that have been made and some things that have been done that have painted Tennessee in not the greatest light nationally. I know you don't deal with local politics per se, at least on the state level, but as a congressman from the state of Tennessee, are you not greatly offended that you are being, along with the rest of us, being painted as racist?
Absolutely, and this is exactly the sort of division politics that we see the Democratic Party play all the time. Everyone who understands the background and what happened here knows this didn't have anything to do with race. This was all about behavior. And you're right. You said it correctly that I was elected by the people of the 6th District of Tennessee, and thank you very much for the opportunity to serve. And I know you're one of my constituents, so thank you for your support. So it's important that I stay in my lane and do what I'm supposed to do, and let our leaders that have been elected, that we've elected to represent us at the state level, they should make those decisions. And they're not always going to get it perfect, but my goodness, all we have to do is go look at what's happening at the federal level and compare and contrast what's happening at the national level, what's happening in other states compared to what's happening in Tennessee. And we know then that our leaders are doing a pretty doggone good job of leading this country, or leading this state. And that's why people are flocking to our state. They're not always going to get it perfect, but they're not racist, and they didn't make this decision based on race. They made it based on the deplorable, unacceptable conduct of a couple of legislators, 3 legislators, and that their conduct is just inexcusable. And the legislators had to decide how they respond to that, and they responded to it forcefully. And I'll let the listeners judge about that.
Yeah. Well,
I'll defer to the Tennessee General Assembly to make the decisions that
they need to make. Well, so you said stay in your lane. I'm going to ask you this last question on behalf of people in your district and people in the 5th district, the 7th district, even in the state of Tennessee. Is there anything, and I think this could be your lane, because there's a manifesto that we have been wanting to see, wanting to be released about the Covenant shooting. And I know, again, that's Nashville, but it's been handed over to the FBI. They have it, and they're keeping a seal on it. You could have the power to request that manifesto be released from the FBI. I would think, and if there's anybody we should be able to talk to say, can you please help us with this? Is that something that you can do or be a part of, or at least write a letter and say it's time to release this information?
Sure, and I'll be happy to do that. I know my fellow colleagues that represent the Nashville area, that in the case of Congressman Ogles, who represents the area where this event happened, has made that request. I certainly support it. I know that Congressman Green has also joined in making that request. So, my view there is that we saw on display, I think initially, that the Nashville Police Department, certainly the officers who responded, we could not say more positive things about them and the work that they did. And initially, I think the department was forthcoming in getting information out to the public in a very timely manner, which was, I think, the right thing to do. I always want to leave room for officials to do the right thing, and there may be some justified reason for holding this information back, but they do need to get it to the public as quickly as possible. And it seems like enough time has passed that it should be in our hands at this point, so that people can understand exactly what was going on. And certainly, I think we all hope that there's not some nefarious reason for holding this information back. But, when these incidents happen, when you have a mass killing event and an individual takes, matters into their hands and hurts their fellow citizens, we all need to take stock of what happened there and evaluate, is there something that could have been done differently? Were there steps that could have been taken that would have made sense, and not punish the rest of society because of
even on the local level, if you're trying to pass gun legislation, it would be better to know what was in the mind of this deranged individual, so that maybe you can design something that could prevent it from happening again. But if you do not have the knowledge, it's difficult to actually do that. And another thing, and then I will let you go, Congressman, but I mean, the Louisville bank shooting that happened 11 days ago, that manifesto's already been released.
That's right, and we see that generally speaking, it makes sense to put this information out as quickly as you possibly can, and so I would certainly implore local officials in Nashville and the FBI, whoever should be making this decision, they should put that information out as quickly as possible. And so I'll join the effort to make sure that they understand that it's important to get that out quickly.
Thank you.
And I think you're right. I think for policymakers, including me, we do need to have the facts in our hands before we start fashioning policy, because, as is so often the case, as you know, there's a reflexive response to these events, and people want to change laws and put in place policies and procedures that oftentimes, even if they had been in place, would not have prevented, would not have made a difference in the incident. And that's just, that's clearly just being done to play to the political base of those individuals who want to be seen as taking action, even if that action is futile.
Right.
And so, one of my good friends always says, and I think that's particularly apt here, don't confuse movement with progress. Don't confuse action with progress, because so often the actions that are being taken are not going to actually change the dynamic. And we have to remember, and if I might impose for a second more, Pamela, and I appreciate the opportunity to be on today, but we have rights in this country. We have the Bill of Rights, and we have enjoyed unprecedented liberty throughout history. But those rights come at a price, at a cost. And I think it's a cost worth paying. We have enjoyed extraordinary liberty and freedom in this country, and freedom from tyranny. And if we look around the world, we started out to kind of circle back to that. If we look around the world and we think about the despots around the world and the number of people who've lost their lives because of tyrannical, despotic leaders in the millions, and we've avoided that here in our country for this, 200 plus years that we've had our republic, and we don't need to throw those rights away in a futile effort to deal with a few crazy people who decide to take the lives of others in an unjustified way.
Mm-hmm. All right, Congressman John Rose, I want to thank you for being with us today. Hug those babies, tell your wife hello, and have a great weekend at home.
Thank you, Pamela. Thanks for having me on
You're
WTN
welcome.
this afternoon, and thanks to the people of Tennessee for the opportunity to represent them.
All right. Talk to you soon, sir. It is 2:23. I am Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
A decision awaits from the Supreme Court on this abortion pill battle. Plus, a woman arrested yesterday in the Tennessee state capitol. We tell you why. 2:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Interesting. Yes, please. Can't wait to hear that. Mac Morey, thank you so much. By the way, someone has written a lyric to the song that we've been singing that should be.
Oh, wow.
So you want to hear it? I mean, I think this is great. So it's okay, I'm going to try to sing it. When it's time to relay all the news of the day, call Mac Morey.
Oh,
what do you think?
Well, I love that. That's pretty good.
He'll never snooze. When there's news you can use, call Mac Morey. It's not bad, is it?
I'm honored. That is amazing.
With Matt
Super
Murphy
texter.
and Dan, Brian Wilson and Pam, there's Mac Morey. And then he didn't write anything else. That was it. So he needs one more section and it'll be finished.
Wow. That is awesome. I'm so impressed.
Yay! This is 0962 who wrote that.
We got to get that produced with you singing it, Pam. That's pretty good.
No, we need to get somebody that sounds like a drunk Dean Martin.
That's fair.
You mean that is me? Oh. All right. So there you go. So thank you, 0962. You just made Mac Morey's day. All right. When we come back, I do want to, because I started this yesterday and got interrupted by breaking news with all the shenanigans going on down at our state house. The Louisville bank shooter manifesto has been released. And I am still I'm not very happy about the fact that we haven't seen the Covenant School manifesto. Now, I know there are people that know a few things that are in it, but on the surface, most people don't have a clue what's in it except for what Chief John Drake has said sporadically as to what's in it. He's read it. I think we need to see it. At some point, I think you should say, the heck with you, FBI. We're going to release this in public interest here in the Nashville area. I don't know that they have the power to do that. I would say, state sovereignty rules there, but that's just me. I could get it, somebody in a lot of trouble if you take my advice. So don't do that. But this is too long of a wait to release this when the shooting in Louisville was just 11 days ago. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, what was in that manifesto in Louisville, and how I think the reason why it was released is because it fits with their narrative, and perhaps the one that the FBI has out of Covenant School doesn't fit the narrative at all, and they're freaking out about it. That's what I think, quite frankly. So anyway, that's coming up after news with Mac Morey on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Now, 31 minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock, Mac Morey with your top story. 73 degrees, a cloudy day, expecting some more showers. Nothing severe, but those elements are headed to the mid-state if they're not already in parts of it. Weather in about 2 minutes. The Supreme Court expected to announce a decision by midnight on whether it'll wade into the abortion pill battle. The decision could have a major impact on access to medication abortions nationwide, even in states where abortion is legal. Here's Devin Dwyer.
The administration told me this morning they are very concerned about the precedent this sets for the entire drug approval system in this country. Never before this case has a court in this country overruled or questioned, second-guessed FDA's approval of a drug. Never before has a judge actually said the science that the agency relied on in approving something for market, governing how it's used, was flawed. So the administration is very concerned about what this could mean for all sorts of cases and drugs, opening the floodgates, if you will, for any sort of questioning of the agency's science and their process.
Right now, here in Tennessee, a woman was arrested yesterday for allegedly shouting and refusing to exit the state capitol. A Tennessee Highway Patrol trooper was called to the second floor after Michelle Flynn was seen reportedly yelling and disturbing the meeting that was in progress. Speaker Cameron Sexton had her escorted to the main floor where they asked her to leave, and she kept refusing, and they told her that if she kept doing that, she would have to be arrested, and that's what happened. New numbers suggest additional health risks for some people who consume sugary drinks. Brian Clark.
One sugary drink like soda per day was linked to an 8% increase in the risk of death among people with type 2 diabetes. That BMJ study looked at 18,000 people from 1980 to 2018. It found better outcomes among people who used artificially sweetened drinks. It was even better when they opted for water, milk, coffee, or tea. Of the 37 million Americans with diabetes, as many as 95% have type 2.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've been teaching investing on Nashville airwaves for over 20 years with the Investor Coaching Show. And in that time, I taught a lot about how markets work and how we invest money and academic principles of investing money. But I've also talked an awful lot about how to avoid the mistakes that people often make with their money. Think about it. A lot of people sold out of the market at the worst time when COVID struck, or when TARP happened, the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or gold, they invested in that at the worst time. Bailing out of the market because they were worried about Y2K or 9/11, or jumping into energy stocks, or jumping into cryptocurrency. One of the things that I like to do is educate investors, because I believe that the more educated you are, the more confident you are, and the more confident you are, the more successful you can be as an investor. Now, I not only do that on our radio show, but we do that in our offices around the Nashville region, 10 offices. To learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 2:37. I am Pamela Furren for Matt Murphy, who will be in here shortly. He'll be here at 3 o'clock, actually, and for Brian Wilson, who will return to the chair and on the air on Monday. So we started to talk about this yesterday, and then the news broke about Scotty Campbell, the moron former lawmaker who was found guilty by a committee, an ethics committee in the State House of discrimination and harassment. We now know what the harassment was. It was very sexually explicit conversations he was having with an intern, maybe even two, that made her extremely uncomfortable. So that story broke yesterday afternoon. I went off on that. I'm still not happy about it at all. But I've said my piece on that, and if you need to know any more about how I feel about it, just hit my socials, and I'll be happy to discuss it with you. And that also includes the speaker, Cameron Sexton, who has called everybody else to talk about what I've had to say, but has not called me to ask me and to talk to me about it. And I
had a good talk with him.
Yeah, well, I know you did. I know you did. All right, so
it wasn't as good as the one Mac had, though. I'm sorry.
I want to know though, did the speaker sing to you as I do?
He tried. He couldn't live up.
Couldn't live up to it. All right. So anyway, no, I'm just kidding. All right, so here's the story: Louisville bank shooter Connor Sturgeon. Right? I'm only going to say his name again, just one that time. He apparently left a disturbing manifesto outlining 3 key reasons for his violent rampage that left 5 coworkers dead. It's 13 pages. It was a missive that detailed his motives. And what bothers me about this is obviously that a very sick man killed these people. That is disturbing. But that it's now been 11 days since that shooting and the manifesto is out. It's been, right at a month or so? About a month since Covenant, and we have yet to see it. Even a redacted version of it from the FBI. Why? So this 25-year-old commercial developer wrote the 13-page missive. He reportedly hoped to showcase how easy it was to buy a gun in Kentucky and wanted to highlight the mental health crisis in America. You know, you can do that without shooting people, right? You can demonstrate how easy it is without actually pulling the trigger against an innocent person in front of you, right? Well, obviously, a mental health issue prohibits someone from thinking clearly on this. He also wanted to highlight the mental health crisis in America. You know, you can do that without actually pulling a trigger, right? I'm saying this for anybody who might be listening who might have those thoughts. I get the text messages from people who say, we don't need to see the manifesto. We don't want copycat killers out there. I hear you. So therefore, I am saying, you know that you can highlight these issues without pulling the trigger against an innocent person, right? He also planned to end the slaughter by suicide, a wish that was granted when he was shot to death by police officers when he brandished his firearm. I hate to correct the author on this particular note, but he didn't die by suicide. The cop shot him. Now, if you want to say death by cop or suicide by cop, fine. You didn't say that. You said he planned to end the slaughter by suicide, a wish that was granted. He did not kill himself. He was a coward. Cowards shoot other people, hoping the police will end their pain. That is a coward. The manifesto is reportedly in the hands of the Louisville Police Department. So can somebody tell me why the FBI didn't take control of this manifesto. I mean, this happened at a bank, which is insured by the FDIC. Am I not right about that? So therefore, the feds have a little bit of skin in the game, a little bit. So you'd think the FBI would take control of that manifesto like they did here. The agency would not confirm or deny any details of the alleged missive. The shooter legally purchased his AR-15 assault rifle, their words in the article, from a local gun dealership 6 days before the rampage. That gun is slated to be auctioned off thanks to state law allowing guns seized by police to go to auction, including those used in violent crimes. If I had the money, I would buy the gun and then destroy the gun. That way no one can use it as a prop for any sick individual that likes to collect things from mass killers, and they're out there. The family has also spoken about his mental health challenges, but they did not specify what illnesses he was battling. I think that would be helpful. They are testing the killer's brain for CTE, which is brain deterioration caused by repeated head trauma. You can't test for that till the individual is dead, by the way. It has been revealed that he suffered numerous sports-related concussions. And so the family thinks that maybe perhaps that's why his personality changed significantly. Dallas Whelan is the shooter's roommate, now former roommate. He has said that the shooter had left a voicemail saying he felt suicidal and was going to kill everybody at the bank. By the time he got on the phone with people, the shooting had happened, I think is how this story goes. Police were there in 3 minutes. 3 minutes they were at the bank. But again, if we had the manifesto of the Covenant shooting, we could study what the mental health issues are, what irrational writings made her believe that it was a rational decision to kill 6 innocent people. What irrational thought she had that justified it in her mind to kill 6 innocent people so police would shoot her. What kind of pain she was in to rationalize thinking that was an okay thing to do. We can't figure it out because we're rational. For the most part, we're rational people. So we'll never understand truly what it takes to be so irrational to justify that. But we can certainly study it and try, and if anything else, figure out the mind of a killer so we know how to fortify places she believed would be vulnerable to an attack by her and others like her. No one's trying to glorify her or make her famous. And in fact, I would implore when the manifesto finally comes out, God, please let it be this weekend. You can redact her name. You don't have to put her name in the story. You don't have to glorify her at all. I am glad that on the record, we had Congressman John Rose saying he'd be happy to join with Mark Green and Andy Ogles in calling for the FBI to release the manifesto. I hope he follows up with that in writing and posts it so we can see that he's done that. And that more and more of our legislators start demanding that this be released. What's the holdup? And let's continue to bring attention to this. On that note, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Matt Murphy will be in here to talk about what's coming up on his show. He may have a special guest with a special announcement. And I brought my bottle of old Antique Weller bourbon in here for him to try. What?
Rod good.
No. Are you insane? Have you lost your mind? Oh, speaking of losing, one more quick thing. Because we talked about this a little bit yesterday, Belle, right? About our weight loss journey. And I got a lot of compliments on that, a lot of comments.
And your target for Monday was?
25 pounds.
And you hit today what?
26 pounds.
Way to go.
I did. I may cry here. I'm down 26 pounds. I really wasn't supposed to get on the scale today, but I did anyway. I'm like, oh, I want to see where I am. Because it's been a hard week for me. 26 pounds. Thank you, Awaken 180 Weight Loss. Thank you, Belle. Thank you, Belle, for holding me accountable.
No cheese in the face.
No cheese in the face this week. All right. We'll be back in a moment on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've been teaching investing on Nashville airwaves for over 20 years with the Investor Coaching Show. And in that time, I taught a lot about how markets work and how we invest money and academic principles of investing money. But I've also talked an awful lot about how to avoid the mistakes that people often make with their money. Think about it. A lot of people sold out of the market at the worst time when COVID struck, or when TARP and the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or gold, they invested in that at the worst time. Bailing out of the market because they were worried about Y2K or 9/11, or jumping into energy stocks, or jumping into cryptocurrency. One of the things that I like to do is educate investors, because I believe that the more educated you are, the more confident you are, and the more confident you are, the more successful you can be as an investor. Now, I not only do that on our radio show, but we do that in our offices around the Nashville region, 10 offices. To learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
A woman arrested yesterday on the State House floor, but what was the bill they were discussing when that woman was arrested? And now Americans being asked to evacuate Sudan immediately. We talk about all that and more. 3 o'clock, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Excellent. Thank you, Magmore. All right. So
when the news hits your face.
Well, somebody wrote something very, very when the news needs relaying. No, I can't remember now what they wrote. I don't have it in front of me, but they actually wrote something pretty cool for Magmore.
When the news isn't nice and you need extra spice, it's Magmore.
That's not bad. I think if you take a little sip of the antique bourbon that I brought you, that it might make you a little more creative.
Okay.
Now, this is a week that I would say, if there is a moment for tasting bourbon, this week would be that week. By the way, did you hear that I got John Rose on the record that he's going to join with Mark Green and Andy Ogles in asking the FBI to release the mandate? Not mandate. What is it?
Manifesto.
Hello. Manifesto.
We're going to dive into that a little bit too, because there's a lot of rumors going on, and obviously we had the conversation yesterday with this alderman in Franklin who didn't really know what she was talking about. All right,
yes.
so I'm trying to be very judicious because you understand.
The bottle, it's an old antique Weller.
Wait a minute. Weren't you carrying water for her?
Carrying water for the alderman?
Yeah. I read on Twitter you were carrying water for her.
I was toting her water. Is that what I was doing?
That's a lie.
Okie dokie.
All right. Now, anybody on the Super Talk TV can see this, and I'll describe it on the radio. When you taste a fine old Weller antique, it's the original 107, it says. So it's proof 107. You nose it, right? So you breathe in through one nostril, and then you breathe it out, right? It smells really good to me.
I'm going to put a little snot bubble in
All
here
right,
in a minute.
so go ahead, and I want Matt Murphy to taste this bourbon. And as he's tasting, I want to remind people the Bourbon Bash on November the 11th this year. Mark it on your calendars. It's going to be one hell of a bash. What do you think?
It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a crisp bite, but it doesn't sting. It's got a great flavor.
I think this might be my favorite bourbon now.
Oh, no, I dropped the bottle into my bag.
I'm going to punch you in the face.
That's really, really good.
It's really good bourbon. So that's the old Weller antique. I love Weller.
Wow.
All right. There you go. That's my gift to you. A taste of bourbon from Matt Murphy on the Matt Murphy
pays
Show.
to know a bourbon snob. And I say that in love.
Yes,
she is, and she's good. And
Matt
that's
Murphy
delicious.
in for Brian Wilson
Yeah,
coming up
it's a
on
party.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
3 o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Right now, 73 degrees, a cloudy day, expecting some rain here. Weather and traffic coming up in just a few minutes. A woman arrested yesterday for allegedly shouting and refusing to exit the state capitol. A Tennessee Highway Patrol trooper was called to the second floor after Michelle Flynn was seen reportedly yelling and disturbing the meeting that was in progress. Speaker Cameron Sexton had her escorted to the main floor. They asked her to leave, and that if she kept refusing, she would be arrested. This happened while the House was discussing a bill that would disband police community oversight boards. They would be replaced by a police advisory and review committee. The bill is now headed to Governor Lee's desk. And first, it was Russia, now Sudan. Americans are being warned to leave that country immediately. Andy Field with that warning from Washington.
While the U.S. has no immediate plans to help thousands of Americans leave Sudan's suddenly violent conflict, the White House is urging them to get out.
It's absolutely imperative that U.S. citizens in Sudan make their own arrangements to stay safe in these difficult circumstances.
National Security Spokesman John Kirby. Pentagon is, however, getting forces ready if it needs to help with quick evacuation.
Here in Tennessee with a crime story, a former county commissioner in Cumberland County, 61-year-old Michael Harver, will now be in prison a long time after he was found guilty of sexually assaulting several women. There are testimonies from 13 different women who say he abused them in some sort of way. Most of the victims were sent to the recycling center, which he was a director at. They were there for community service, a lot of them struggling with substance abuse, single mothers. One testimony says that he drove one woman to a landfill in the woods where he raped her. He threatened his victims regularly so they would not turn him in. And over the FBI investigating after an apparent swastika was found carved in the back of a Jewish student in Las Vegas who is unable to share much right now. Alex Stone.
Carved or scratched into the back of a Clark County high school Jewish student with autism is what the Anti-Defamation League says is a swastika. Who did it and where aren't clear. Clark County Schools says its investigation has found no evidence it happened on campus. The FBI is investigating. Jolie Brislin with ADL Nevada.
It's probably one of the most egregious incidents that I've seen.
The origins of the apparent swastika on the boy are not clear.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.